Hello viewers, welcome to this edition of the Bantaba. This week we have a special guest, Mr. Honorable Ousainou Darboe. Well, the name Ousainou Darboe needs no further introduction. Everybody who is anybody in the Gambia obviously knows the name. He's the party leader of the United Democratic Party, UDP. Mr. Darboe, it's our pleasure to have you on this platform called the Bantaba.
Thank you very much.
So just to start off, we all know that in the lead up to the December election, your health took a knock. Generally, how are you feeling now?
I'm feeling great. I'm recovering. See, I do not use a walker aid. I'm using a caudal pod to make a movement easier. I could without it, but then we don't want to take risk, and that is the advice of my doctors. And I like to express profound gratitude and appreciation to those medical personnel who took care of me from day one up to the present present day. They really cared for me, and even the day of the accident, outside normal working hours, about 2-3 a.m., they were there in the hospital waiting for me to look after me. I'm really grateful to them.
Interesting. So I would like for us to jump straight into the serious issues. The UDP lost the election, and some people say, in the wake of the election defeat, they said that it is about time Honorable Ousainou Darboe hung up his political boots. And perhaps, they said this after 5 successive elections, no victory at the poll. What do you say to those comments?
Well, those are perceptions, those are beliefs and opinions, which I very much respect. But then, are they suggesting that it is my personality that has been responsible for the loss of the elections?
No, sir.
If it is my personality, then I would think that Gambians do not value policies. Because of our 5-point agenda, you can't have any program better than that, and that is the program we sold to the Gambian people. But of course, if the Gambians feel that this man Ousainou Darboe, no, despite the fact that you have this very impressive, very relevant, and a program that will benefit the country, we are not going to vote for him. Then you are voting against yourself.
Do you think that was the reason why?
No, but because it is a question. Because having tried 5 times,
yes,
student hung up, and I'm saying that if it is my personality,
okay,
then of course we would hang up. Then those who are saying so, if they agree that is the personality of Ousainou Darboe, then I will say very well, we can hang up. But then you do not care for policies, because if you care for policies, you will not vote. Or you will not reject UDP's bid for presidency because of Ousainou Darboe as a person.
Interesting. Honorable, can you talk to us about succession plans? Are there any succession plans at the UDP? What happens to the UDP after Ousainou Darboe?
You see, when you talk of succession plans, as far as I'm concerned, it's really putting yourself in a position that is condescending. After all, I was selected by people, so I cannot and I should not be seen. They were saying that I want Alma-Matal to succeed me, or I want Ibrahim Adiba or Scarfrel Jani. It will be left for the Congress to elect a new leader, and I will be amongst people who would vote for a leader. But I cannot, if I really come out and say identify as have an heir apparent, I think that will go against our democratic principles. So, succession plan, I can tell you that all they have a very competent people within the party who are serving in both in the national executive and some in the diaspora, and certainly at Congress, any of them can come up and bid for the leadership of the party.
Sir, you christened Mamadou Sabally your commando, but many people said, stand to be corrected, some people said he's perhaps divisive and perhaps the UDP is better off without him. What do you say to those comments? I
think those are wrong comments. I think those are people who really do not have any admiration for Mr. Sabally. But I don't know how he has been divisive. I don't know how he has been divisive. I mean, we know, all that I know is that he is coming very hard on opponents of the United Democratic Party, and because they don't like that and they think that he is divisive. But I do not see him doing anything that is divisive. And of course, if I suspect or see that he's doing anything divisive, I'll call him and check him and say that you cannot do that because we want to maintain unity in the party. Nothing that will divide us should be really promoted by anyone. So, but then those who really who do not like anything about Mamadou Sabally, who do not look like anything, how he speaks, how he smiles, how he coughs. They don't like anything about those things, so they think that he is divisive, and that is not true. But in any case, in an organization as big as UDP, you'll have people who will not, accept everybody. I'm sure there are people in the UDP who have some faults, who think that there are great faults with me. Maybe they are not airing out to me. And these people who said consider Mr. Sabally as divisive, they do not tell Mr. Sabally, they say it in the corners. So we may have people who also have views about me, yet they do not say it out to me.
Sir, the supporters of the United Democratic Party, they intend to hold a demonstration following the rejection of Mr. Mamadou Sabally by the IEC. They want to take to the streets to protest the IEC's decision. Yourself, as in you, would you support that idea?
Let me tell you, Ibrahim Adiba, when he applied for the party, for the permit, he applied for it as an individual. His address was Nema, Sukuta Nema. And he signed as Ibrahim Adiba.
Yes.
A Gambian citizen.
Yes.
And every Gambian citizen has the right to apply for a permit and go out to protest. Every Gambian has that right. And he wasn't doing so in the name of the United Democratic Party, and I do not fault him for really wanting to exercise his constitutional right as a citizen of this country to apply for a permit. It is left for the approving authority to approve or not approve his application. So this has nothing to do with the UDP. In fact, sure, probably if he's given the permit, maybe some other people who are not members of the UDP will really be joining. But let me tell you that, to pigeonhole them as UDP, I think that will be wrong. They are Gambian people who really would have gone out if Mr. Adiba is granted the permit. If UDP is staging anything, we will apply. We will, in fact, ask our national organizing secretary or campaign manager to put the application to the police that we want to hold demonstration, peaceful demonstration, and which is a right exercisable under the Constitution, and they would have to give us a good reason for rejecting it, because this phony reason of security reasons they are phony reasons, which used to happen in Jammeh's time, and is now being brought over to this regime under the current dispensation. From my side, every citizen of this country has the right to apply to the Inspector General of Police.
And would you be
for a permit? Every citizen of this country has a right to apply to the Inspector General of Police for the issuance of a permit to stage a peaceful protest. That is the right of every citizen. And of course, it is also within the remit of the Inspector General of Police to grant or not to grant the permit.
Following the Supreme Court's rejection of the UDP's election petition, your party's supporters, they've heavily criticized some of the sitting Supreme Court judges. You have a familiarity with some of these judges and the other constituent judges of the Supreme Court. What do you make of their decision?
Now, I'm not here to discuss about individual judges. The party had issued, in fact, I personally had issued a statement on my view of the institution, the judiciary, but I will not discuss about individual judges at all.
But do you share their condemnation of the courts and its constituent judges?
If you had read the statement I issued, this question would not have been asked. Because I have stated that, fully have confidence in the judiciary of this country, and we respect the judges of this country. And I specifically said that the Chief Justice is an eminent African jurist, who's highly respected throughout the world. So if you are talking about me personally, or even the party's position, we had made that quite clear. So, condemnation, I don't think I'll go out to condemn people, but I also have the right. We also express our views on the judiciary as an institution and our respect for the individual office holders.
Honorable Panjai Grigara, now with the NPP, he stated publicly that he once gave you $1 million, and that you promised. Sorry, it's not funny. I'm sorry, it's not funny. He said upon this, you promised that you would make his nominee a minister in a certain UDP government, or if UDP were to come to power. He even challenged you to respond to these criticisms,
Well, you see,
this assassin, rather.
Yeah, you see, I had always felt that the ravings and rantings of a person like Mr. Njai, I should not edify them by responding to them. But let me say this, I have never at any time when he gave $1 million. I was on tour in the provinces and he met Mr. Manneh, because it was Mr. Manneh who contacted me. He met Mr. Manneh and offered to help on condition that he has a company that deals in telephone cards, call cards, so that we could give you exclusive contract, exclusive rights for that. And also if you could be appointed a minister. And my response to Mr. Manneh was that, look, when it comes to the call cards, there is no way that we can make such a commitment, because this has to go through the proper procedures of procuring this, and of course enter into those contracts. So for ministerial position, that is left to the prerogative of the president, which could be considered. So I've never met him. I never gave that to him as a incentive. He wanted, I think his company was called Westcom, I think so, Westcom. He wanted Westcom to really order all cards for Gamtel, that when we become president, I say, well, that, no. We cannot give that commitment. You have to go through the normal procedures, and if you win, that's fine. And in any case, and he also told Mr. Manneh specifically what ministry wanted, communications. And I told Mr. Manneh that wouldn't be a conflict of interest if he is minister for communications and then wanting his company to be supplying Gamtel with call cards. I told him that would be conflict of interest. And of course, that is it. But Mr. Njai has never told anybody about this. Mr. Njai left UDP to go to GDC, but he never mention any of those things. You know, I'll tell you, when I came out of prisons, I told President Adam Barrow, look, there's this Mr. Njai, you know, could he be considered? The president told me, but look, this man has abandoned UDP, he has gone to GDC.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
He said, you know, the man has abandoned UDP to go to GDC, so we cannot consider him for any ministerial appointment. You know, but even as member of GDC, Mr. Njai never said anything untoward, never came out with these rantings. You know what happened?
Tell me.
His wife was working then, I believe, now Mega Bank.
Yes, the wife was working. And she was eventually removed.
And she was removed, and he asked me, to ask Mr. Sane, Ahmad Sane, to reinstate his wife. And I said, we'll investigate. And when I spoke to Ahmad Sane, I found that there was justification for removing her. And I told him that, look, I'm sorry, you know, your request to have your wife reinstated is not possible. I said, but look, koto yolinga Ahmad Sane, said sa khalella, nga mun nga loko wa muarna ko def. I said, but that is what we fought against in Yahya Jammeh's time, doing the wrong things in order to please individuals. Because I did not twist Ahmad Sane's hands, and I didn't have the power to twist Ahmad Sane's hands. I'm not president. I was not even vice president. I was foreign minister. I didn't have the power to force him to do anything. And even if I had the power, I wouldn't force any minister to do anything to reverse a decision that was taken after due consideration, just to bring about back the Jammeh practice. You know? This is what hurts him, because I did not twist Ahmad Sane's hands to reinstate his wife. But let him continue talking. I appreciate that when we are in Faz Njagachoy, he sent money. In fact, before even that money came, the person he contacted got in touch with me, Faz Njagachoy. Said, look, someone has contacted me, because then we have been very careful, because we believe that, you know, maybe traps have been laid for us. You know, we have been very careful who to do business with and who not to do business with. You know, and when he mentioned his name, I said, well, I think that is safe. You know, I appreciate that, but then he's not happy because I have not done the wrong thing to please his wife. That is all.
Interesting. Honorable, even if you are staying on as UDP leader, certainly you are in the twilight of your political career. What are your plans for the younger UDP generation to take over after?
Twilight? Well, very good. Well, I accept that I'm the twilight. Yeah. You see, you probably would have observed that there are a lot of young people in the party, and these young people have been entrusted with running the affairs of the party. And the young people, you find them in both sexes, male and female, outstanding women and outstanding gentlemen, each of whom, you know, has the quality, the qualification and integrity to be president of this country.
Yeah.
So there is no want of talent, there is no want of quality people in the UDP. But again, as I had told you earlier on, okay, because this again is a succession plan that you know, it will be for the UDP to select who succeeds me. I cannot handpick or groom anybody to take over as leader of the party. In government, the presidency, you can groom someone to take over from as president, but for a party, it is difficult.
It's difficult.
It's difficult for a party because as president, you can groom your vice president.
Yeah.
To take over, from you as president. But it's very difficult for a party. And you also do not want to really influence decisions that will cause cracks within the party and maybe disintegration in the party. Yeah.
Do you regret supporting Barrow?
I have never regretted supporting Barrow. I've never regretted so because when I was doing it, I did it with conscience. I did it with the belief that I was doing the right thing. So I cannot regret for believing to have done things that were right. I will not regret for doing things, for having done things that were done consensuously. Maybe they came on unexpected, but then for me, politics, it's a politics, is certainly a game of betrayals and so forth.
Yeah.
So, but of course, I did not expect that. I did not expect that. I did not expect that from Barrow. So I have not regretted, really, for supporting him, and I'm happy to say that UDP has thrown out Jammeh from power. I'm happy to say that. I'm happy that UDP has brought an end to dictatorship in this country. I'm happy that UDP is the one that caused these horrendous revelations at the TRRC to have happened. Because it was UDP that went out to challenge, to confront the dictator. And that galvanized Gambians to vote him out.
Honorable DARBOE, there is certainly a need for system change in the Gambia. What are the key areas that you sincerely believe the government should focus on to get the Gambia out of the hole that it is in?
To get out of the
to get the country out of the hole that it is in.
The hole. I don't know. I don't know whether we need a hook and slinger to put it down so that and then we reach it out. I don't know. But seriously, I think we have to be serious when we talk about changing the system.
Yeah.
There should be less political interference with the institutions. They should all be political. All the civil service, the entire public service should be political. And once we are able to do that, then you'll definitely have a system change. Is it different from Jammeh's time, the way police are handling people?
No.
Is it different from Jammeh's time?
Not much.
It's in fact, it's worse. I mean, you want to satisfy the government, the sitting government, by really doing things that are unacceptable, that go against good practice. Can you see the example of that young girl, the TikTok girl? The TikTok girl?
Yeah.
She was arrested by the Bruceby police.
Yes.
Apparently, say for insulting. For insulting. She didn't mention any specific individual. She condemned the system. She condemned the system, and then ended her condemnation with use of a profane language, which certainly is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Nobody can condone the use of profane language for any purpose at any given time. The police did not only arrest her, but also seized her mobile and warned her not to talk to the press and warned her not to talk to anybody. She has been advised to go to the Human Rights Commission and report this particular police officer there. But you know what happened? Some time ago, somebody, a lady, insulted my mother. In fact, when the police officers listened to it, they were so aghast and said, look, this girl really wants to, also insulted my mother, my father, and insulted me. You see, but the police never did anything about that. But they are now treating this young lady in this manner because they want to satisfy the sitting government. And that was what was happening in Yahya Jammeh's time. Somebody insulted our whole clan after DARBOE came out. It's like anybody insulting Serigne Bamba. They never did anything about that, but they can go and pounce on this little girl for her TikTok statement, and which she, in fact, she apologized for. What is the crime? When somebody insults my mother, I report to the police. They don't do anything about that, but then they can go and arrest her. So can you see how much we are going back to that situation in Jammeh's time? Public servants are threatened with dismissals because they support the opposition. In Jammeh's time, we all agreed that Sefolo should never take part in politics. That was part of the agenda. That was part of Coalition 2016's agenda to bring about a stop to that. But it's happening. Haven't you seen the circular from the controller of government vehicles? Yeah. Barrow is going on campaign. Yeah, I'm commandeering government vehicles.
I wanted to pick your brain up.
Commandeering government vehicles. Yeah. But that was happening in Jammeh. So the system hasn't changed. What we have done is to change the guard at the sentry post. That is all that has been done. But the system is still there, and in fact, it's even, let me say, more objectionable now than in Jammeh's time, because the people fought to bring about an end to that system. But if those who have been entrusted with the power and responsibility to really correct that horrible dispensation, to really do away with it, if they are the ones now perpetuating it, then they find that that is more objectionable than in Jammeh's time.
Yeah. Interesting. In the last election, Mr. DARBOE, the United Democratic Party did not seek any collaboration like the NPP did. Now, some political analysts say this is, in part, the reason why the UDP is dismal showing in the poll. Don't you regret that decision?
No. We did not regret that decision. We did not have an alliance, but we certainly had endorsement.
Yes.
From GFA. We certainly had an endorsement from them. So that is, for me, that is as good as being in coalition. But then, which parties are we going to have an alliance with? I mean, the other parties have chosen parties that they want to ally with. So we cannot go after, parties, who are looking for jobs. Because as you say, all those people who condemned Adama Barrow, that he's inefficient, he's incompetent, that he cannot run the affairs of this country, they are the ones who are running 100 miles an hour to go and join the NPP. Some call themselves independent, whatever. But they had all condemned Barrow here for being incompetent, for not being capable to handle the affairs of this country. For me, I think Barrow is a better person than them.
Why do you think they still went ahead after all those condemnations?
Because they are looking for jobs. That is all. They are looking for jobs. And that is why I think, for me, Barrow is a better person than them. They think that we have to go to Barrow so that we can get jobs. It's not out of conviction. It's not out of principle. It's not principle driven. That decision is principle. It's not principle driven. Yeah.
Mr. Darboe, there are those who said the UDP is in disarray. What does the future hold for the party? I mean, do you see the United Democratic Party, heading this country at some point?
Well, those who think that UDP is in disarray really wish to see the UDP in disarray. These are expressions of their wishes. They want to see this UDP in disarray, and we've been told that since 1997 that UDP is in disarray. We've been told that, but each time we go out of an election cycle, we come out stronger. And obviously, yes, all things being equal, if you don't have rogue registers, if you don't have corrupt practices being indulged in by incumbent, we certainly will win. But because you have the indulging in corrupt practices, Mr. Jite, his last I think video or this video audio says that well, Mr. Darboe memfo so he went on recounting all other cases of corrupt practices that
was a viral one,
in which the NPP got indulged in, because he was an agent of the NPP. He wanted to see NPP win the election. He wanted to see Barrow win the elections. So these were things done for and on behalf of Barrow and for his benefit. So that was enough to really nullify this election.
Do you see the United Democratic Party as the future for the Gambia?
I have always said that United Democratic Party, in fact, is the future of the Gambia. Yeah, is the future of the Gambia.
Interesting. Honorable Henry Gomez said that the current advisor, he said, Allah took you to heaven, but you decided to come back to hell. How do you respond to those?
Well, you see, people who don't have, who cannot live on their own, who cannot sustain themselves, will always be an appendage to others. Yeah? Ministerial positions mean nothing if it's in terms of earnings. My law practice, if I go back to my law practice, would be more lucrative than really receiving the salary of a vice president or a minister. Yeah? But you see, people like Henry Gomez, really, because of their ineptitude, because of their lack of skills, would have to go on praise singing, would have to continue being sycophants in order to continue to retain the position they do with government. And why was he removed as a minister? I mean, certainly, I don't think he has competence. We don't have to mince words about that. He doesn't have the competence to be a minister. He thinks that wallow and Wolof is what runs a ministry. That is wrong. Yeah? I'm not being condescending, but this is the truth. Yeah? Let him continue saying that, and he'll continue to say that in order to retain the small privileges that he's enjoying. Henry Gomez out as an advisor here, he will stay in this country. He will go somewhere else because he cannot sustain himself here. He cannot.
He has a job?
I say out of office as an advisor. He cannot sustain himself. He cannot do anything for himself. He cannot be independent. He does not have the capacity. He does not have the capacity. Maybe capacity to dogu. Maybe that would be his capacity.
Honorable, we've already taken so much of your time. We are now coming to the concluding stages of this marathon interview. But we will not do justice if we do not add one or two more questions. Some analysts believe the UDP's failure or inability to address the many allegations of tribalism leveled against it in the lead up to the December election, by and large, contributed to the party's performance or so in the poll. Do you accept
I think that has been the views of some analysts. But I have stated that I will not take part in a debate that will cause further polarization. Because when you talk about this issue of tribalism, when you start pointing out that people say this man is tribalist and we do the same thing, you are really creating a greater divide.
But how would setting the record straight create a greater...
But then the Gambian people should really say whether or not UDP is a tribal party or is not a tribal party. Those who really peddle those allegations are those who are bereft of ideas. And the only thing they can do is to go on a smear campaign. And inshallah, UDP will not toe that line, because we believe ourselves to be Gambians and not Mandinkas. We believe ourselves to be Gambians and not Jolas. We believe ourselves to be Gambians and not Fullers. Those who really try to thrive on tribalism, in order to achieve their political goals, are themselves digging, their political graves. Because, this is an explosive issue, and if it explodes, it's going to be devastating. So that is why we don't want to talk about tribal. We don't want to accuse anybody of tribalism. We don't want to accuse anybody of sectionalism. Yeah. We want to show what we want to give to the Gambian people was our five-point agenda, because that is what we believe will take Gambia forward, and not this issue of tribe here, tribe there. We can now see the consequences of it. And they are saying Fullers and Wallahs have been, but should they be thinking that way? They shouldn't be thinking that XYZ nominated as a candidate in a particular constituency is a Fuller. They shouldn't be thinking that way. They should just be thinking of them as Gambians, and what they're going to offer, and what they will offer in the National Assembly. But you can see it's happening among themselves. It's happening there.
Exactly. What are your views personally? What are your views on tribalism and
it is
how
horrible.
It is tearing the seams of the social fabric?
It is horrible. It is horrible. It's unacceptable. And those who are really promoting it are doing a great deal of disservice to this country.
What should be done about it? What can be done about it?
What can be done about it is that, we should try and disabuse people's minds that governments have to be elected based on tribes, because that only just be showing a census, tribal census, ethnic census, and which really is not for the good of the country. I think it behoves every Gambian to really take it upon himself to engage with others and disabuse each other's minds on this terrible phenomenon that we call tribalism. That is really, putting our society asunder. It's really causing a great deal of destruction. It is. It's causing a great deal of destruction. I got really worried. When somebody stands up and speaking in Mandinka, and then another person say, "Hey, kill more wani, ñun degul Olof, ñun degul Sose." Oh, somebody speaking, and another ko ñi kamun kan fa jandu karal Mandinka kan fo. That is really very worrying, and happening among neighbors. It is really worrying.
Any final observations, comments, or perhaps you have an issue that you feel is of importance that we did not raise or bring forward during the course of this interview?
Well, okay. Well, an issue that I think is very important. I hear the president is going on campaign.
Yes.
On Saturday.
Yes. Yes.
But I think the country is in a situation that deserves the president's special attention. He should be at State House and address this issue in Fonyi.
The Casamas issue.
The Casamas issue. Our fellow citizens are being displaced by the day. Villages abandoning their villages to go to other parts of the country. And of course, when they abandon their villages, they would not be able to take along their animals. And we know that most of these villagers, their wealth is in their animals. They wouldn't be able to take them. The president, instead of going for this campaign tour, he should really be sitting down and then monitoring by the hour what is happening around our borders and taking the necessary corrective measures. He cannot go out, he cannot give premium, cannot attach premium to his political gains and abandon what he has been elected to do. That is to say, to protect the territorial integrity of this country, to make sure that the people of this country live in peace, to make sure that the people of this country really are able to sleep at night. I heard a teacher saying that he's tired of hearing gunshots, and he wants transfer.
Yeah.
You know? Schools are closed, and those are very, very serious issues. So I think the president should really be addressing that and not go.
If left unchecked, in your opinion, what can the customers issue lead to?
Well, the customers issue certainly can lead to, I wouldn't say an accident, but certainly it can lead to devastating consequences for the Gambia. Because the social fabric that is being destroyed in customers, these refugees, well, I won't call it refugees, these displaced persons. These internally displaced persons, you have to house them, you have to feed them. You are unprepared for that. It's going to lead to a humanitarian crisis for the Gambia. And I think this is what the president should really be concerning himself about, rather than wanting to go out and campaign for his candidates to win. After all, you want a good National Assembly, to be elected in a peaceful atmosphere. I hear people in Fonyi, some people in Fonyi, saying that, look, they cannot campaign in the area. So what does that do to the credibility of our elections? What does that do to it?
Mr. DARBOE, Secretary General, Party Leader of the United Democratic Party, it's been my pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome.